Yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize the chair of the full committee, Chair Rodgers, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Regan, I appreciate you being here today. Our visions for the EPA should be aligned. America has the highest environmental labor standards in the world, and Energy and Commerce Republicans are committed to this legacy to ensure clean air, clean water, and continuing our leadership in reducing carbon emissions. Achieving this requires stewardship over how American hard-earned taxpayer dollars are spent. Unfortunately, that is not what we're seeing today at the EPA, as it seems that the focus is on President Biden's so-called climate agenda that is increasing prices on low and middle-income families, seeking control of the cars we drive, and making America dependent on Chinese supply chains that are dirtier and use slave labor. Since President Biden took office, the EPA has been injected with more than $100 billion in taxpayer dollars. This is on top of the annual appropriations funding. This is a 1,000% increase in spending. It's truly staggering, while the American people are already paying for record high inflation. And this increase is on top of the $60 billion in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the over $41 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act. The EPA doesn't need more money. Its regulatory agenda is out of touch with the needs of the American people. Last week, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, Unified Agenda and Regulatory Plan, listed 151 separate rulemakings pending from EPA. 151 pending rulemakings. This list contains some of the most aggressive mandates, shortening public comment periods, introducing regulatory changes that lack the analysis to justify them. These actions place substantial financial burdens on Americans that lower their standard of living, from blackouts in California to seasonal energy shortages in New England and the Midwest. The pain is being felt by people across the country. These impractical, expensive standards will eliminate good-paying jobs, destroy our manufacturing base and domestic supply chains, and threaten America's leadership in key industries that have historically been critical to our efforts to reduce emissions. For instance, a recent economic impact report by the National Association of Manufacturers found that EPA's proposed air quality regulations for particulate matter will jeopardize an estimated 850,000 manufacturing jobs and over $160 billion in economic activity. And this is on top of other EPA-enacted policies that are out of step with the congressional mandated authority to regulate. You know, just last year, the Supreme Court ruled in West Virginia versus EPA that EPA is exceeding its statutory authority. As the elected representative of the people, I was encouraged that the court ruled that EPA had exceeded their legislative authority. And they called upon Congress. They said that Congress needs to, on behalf of the people, hold the EPA accountable. I'm concerned when I consider 151 proposed rulemakings that there's additional abuses of power by the administration through all this rulemaking, and I want to assure you we're going to be watching very closely to ensure that the agency is not exceeding the authority, and that's our constitutional responsibility. I also wanted to highlight EPA's role in reviewing and approving human health water quality criteria. In December, the EPA set an unattainable PCB standard for human health water quality criteria in Washington State, my home state. Not only is this standard unattainable with current technology, it's not even detectable using EPA's approved last test methods. Even more troubling, it appears that the Washington State Department of Ecology is using an unapproved test method to determine whether job creators in Washington are in compliance with this unattainable standard. I want clean and safe water in Washington State. It's vital, it's life. But I also want regulations to be based on sound science and have predictability for the job creators, for our farmers, and for our manufacturing companies, our recycling plants. I'll close by making this appeal to you. The concerns we raise today are directly from the people that we represent, and we're concerned by the EPA's regulatory agenda and that is encroaching on our way of life and our future. You are accountable to the people through us, the elected representatives, and we're working to ensure that we can afford energy bills and drive the cars that we would like. That's freedom for a better life and to make the best decisions for ourselves. So I look forward to this discussion. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from New Jersey, the ranking